Megacast, Untitled Chapter from the studios of our flagship stations, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM. In addition, today, as always, we're on Birmingham area municipal access. You can find our local public cable television stations on Comcast Channel 15 and AT&T Channel 99. Our flagship radio station, of course, is 89.3 Lakes FM. We're also joined in the Birmingham-Bloomfield area by 88.1 WBFH, the BIF, a service of the Bloomfield Hills School District. You can find us online, civiccentertv.com. Click on our Watch Live link, or view us in the small player at the top right of our homepage. Hey, if you're on your mobile phone watching our show each and every day, or you want to watch a show on your cell phone from anywhere at any time during our live shows or on demand, if you go to civiccentertv.com and you scroll onto the left side of your page, that's where you're going to find our Watch Live link on our mobile website, civiccentertv.com. We're also on My Michigan TV, Michigan's very own streaming network. You can find that on mymytv.com, mymytv.com, mymytv.com. You can watch us live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. You can watch Steve Leto live from 12 to 1 o'clock, Monday through Friday there as well, and find programs from other creators around the state of Michigan, newsmakers, documentary filmmakers as well, just general programming, talk shows like this about Michigan, about your state, the Great Lakes state, and that's all content free on mymytv.com. And you can also find MyMy on the Apple App Store, the Android App Store, as well as smart TV app stores such as Roku TV, Amazon TV, Amazon Fire TV, Apple TV as well, and other smart TV applications as well. You can find by just searching My Michigan TV. And as always, we're on Facebook via Facebook Live, facebook.com/CivicCenterTV15 and facebook.com/LakesFM. But I know not all of you can tune in live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon every day. Some of you, the best time of day might be 2 to 4 in the afternoon. It might be midnight until 2 a.m. if you're one of those crazy kids that's a night owl and loves to, ring in the new day with the Oakland County Megacast, as so many do. You can find all those full episodes on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast. And for you to have a little less time but really want to dive deep into these important topics and these current events that we're talking about each and every day on the show, but you only have limited amounts of time, you can watch our full interviews there as well, civiccentertv.com/megacast. And you can find out more about our partnering stations on our Megacast network of television, radio, and other media outlets. Learn more about what's going on at the BIF, 88.1 WBFH, the BIF, as they begin to start their new regular programming in the afternoons with their student broadcasters every day from 3 p.m. to 9 p.m., as well as Bloomfield Hills High School athletics and special events in the Birmingham-Bloomfield area as well. Learn more about Lakes FM, our flagship radio station, by clicking on the link to their website there at civiccentertv.com/megacast. So you don't have to write down all these different places you can watch and listen to the Megacast. We have all that information right there for you on civiccentertv.com/megacast. And right next to that, on civiccentertv.com/coronavirus, we have important information about COVID-19 directly from reliable resources at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention at the state level from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, as well as at the Oakland County level and the municipal level, because one city or one township or one village to the next, the response to COVID-19 might be different. There may be ways that COVID is impacting your hometown different from my hometown. What happens in Wixom is different than what happens in Royal Oak, what happens in West Bloomfield, what happens in Pontiac, and we have links to many of those municipalities' direct COVID-19 pages. So again, you don't have to go weeding through all the misinformation and the disinformation that's out there. You're not relying on Aunt Peggy on Facebook and all of her information about COVID-19, because a lot of Aunt Peggy's information is wrong. We have direct resources, people that have been researching this, people that are studying this, people that are on the front lines fighting COVID-19 at the Centers for Disease Control, the state of Michigan, and Oakland County, civiccentertv.com facebook.com/coronavirus, where we also have our top headlines for each and every episode of the Megacast, including today making news as the Michigan pandemic protests rage. Experts forecast a fall COVID-19 surge. This from our friends over at the Detroit Free Press, including one of our good friends of the show, Dave Boucher, their government and politics reporter. Dr. Rob Davidson is accustomed to delivering advice, but the West Michigan emergency room physician was stunned when he received a few tips ahead of speaking at the recent Ottawa County Commission meeting. A county staff member noticed Davidson's shirt, which read Public Health, emblazoned on the front, and he said to Davidson, quote, "You might want to turn that shirt inside out. Some people won't like that. Hope your shoelaces are tied tight so you can run if you have to," end closed quote. In fact, Dr. Davidson, a Democratic healthcare activist, did need an escort after he voiced his support for public health orders mandating masks for all school children in preschool to 6th grade who are too young for the coronavirus vaccines. The scene is far from unique across Michigan and the country. People are protesting the mitigation measures health and safety experts say will help stymie the ongoing generational health crisis. All the while, the pandemic rages on. The indicators of an impending surge have risen drastically. Case rates in Michigan are up more than 1,000% since June 22nd, the day that Governor Gretchen Whitmer's administration rolled back the remaining statewide pandemic orders. The test positivity rate is up more than 600% over the same time frame, according to reviews of state data. COVID-19 hospitalizations also are up by 175% since June 22nd, the day the orders were rescinded. Deaths have dipped, but have risen back to approximately the same level recorded on that date in June. This is just the beginning. State health experts are warning the ultra-transmissible Delta variant bears down. As that happens, they're predicting another surge, potentially greater than the one in the spring that became the worst outbreak in the entire nation. And it's expected to hit just as hundreds of thousands of kids, many ineligible for a vaccine, are returning to in-person school in the coming days. State leaders are urging school boards, county commissions, and health departments to enact masking rules, but have not instituted any new statewide epidemic orders. That's prompted local officials to scramble to come up with the best way to keep students safe and residents happy, to which good luck, because finding that balance is a lot easier said than done. Continuing on in this article, Dr. Rob Davidson was quoted saying, quote, "I just don't know how we got to this point. How this ridiculous thing, a simple mask on someone's face, has become so divisive and political." Davidson, of course, lives in Ottawa County and has children in their local school system, on top of speaking at the Ottawa County Commission's recent meeting. Davidson was not physically harmed, but had to push past hundreds of angry parents and children who booed him, chanting, "Vote them out." They held signs with phrases such as, "I refuse to wear a mask," and "Our kids, our choice, #no mask." Well, luckily there was #no violence in that case. Not exactly what's been seen everywhere in the U.S. as there's been plenty of less than cordial reactions to people who are in favor of mask mandates and less than cordial declarations of opposition from those who would prefer their children to not be protected by a mask and be exposed to COVID-19 in their classrooms. The state's largest counties, including Wayne County, Oakland County, Kent, and Genesee, have enacted school mask mandates. However, all district and county mandates are still only cover about 54% of Michigan students, according to Governor Whitmer's office. Some middle schools in Genesee County serve children in 6th, 7th, and 8th grades, but the mask mandate only applies to 6th graders, many of whom are not yet able to be fully vaccinated. Only one coronavirus vaccine, Pfizer, is authorized for use in children as young as 12 years of age. While 6th graders must wear masks all the time, 7th and 8th graders would also need to be masked when attending classes with the 6th graders, a county health official said. Teachers must wear masks if they are 6th graders that are in their classes. On Friday, Helena Burt, a 42-year-old Grand Blanc resident, was arraigned on charges of sending death threats to two Genesee County Health Department officials who enacted the mask rule for younger students in the mid-Michigan county. In a quote from Genesee County Prosecutor David Lighton, he said, quote, "I understand the passion that some people feel over this mask order. It's going on across the state. I've seen it in other counties, I've seen it in other counties as well." Noting that Burt is innocent until proven guilty. Quote, and continued on, David Lighton continued on saying, quote, "Peaceful protest is a healthy thing, but there's a line you can't cross, and these allegations cross the line." Yes, certainly there's better ways to go about your opposition to anything than by sending death threats. If you don't like a policy, go to your local meeting, go to your county commission meeting and say, "I don't like what the health department's doing." Go to your local school board meeting and say, "I don't like this order you're putting in place, and here's why." Don't send a death threat. Daily tip of the day for you: don't go sending death threats. Usually doesn't work out too well. Usually doesn't do a great job of getting your opinion across. But then again, what do I know? I'm simply sitting here, not in jail, expressing my opinions productively. Good luck to you, Burt. Again, innocent until proven guilty. Vaccines and the right masks do slow the spread of coronavirus, and they have been readily more available. Despite this, some people are genuinely concerned about the efficacy of vaccines and masking. There are studies that suggest some masks are less effective or do little to stop the spread of COVID-19 in schools or elsewhere. And those vaccinated in late 2020 or early 2021 likely need a booster shot. A widely cited study on the effectiveness of masks in schools examined the impact of masking policies in November and December on Georgia students in kindergarten through 5th grade. The study found masking by teachers and staff helped slow the spread of COVID-19, but the impact of masking students, quote, "was not statistically significant compared with schools where mask use was optional," close quote. The study was done before vaccines were widely available and before the Delta variant became the most prevalent form of the virus. So there's a little bit of a caveat. It's before vaccines were widely available, so people had measures in place that prevented more severe symptoms or prevented hospitalizations, and in many cases prevented severe enough symptoms that people would even be getting tested against COVID-19. And then on top of that, it didn't involve the Delta variant, which is much more transmissible than the novel coronavirus we met in March and asked to leave our homes pretty quickly, but they stuck around for the entire party. And the other variants as well, which while being more easily transmissible and showing more severe symptoms than the original novel coronavirus version of COVID-19 that we saw in March of 2020, they are still not nearly as transmissible as that of the Delta variant. So slight differences that do impact the efficacy of that study. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention still recommends universal masking in schools, pointing to other studies that showed masking by students, along with strategies like physical distancing, improved building ventilation and testing, prevent the spread of COVID-19. Wow, what a concept that we've been told for a year and a half, and when enacted actually has shown to work. While the vast majority of recorded cases now are among unvaccinated people, the number of cases of infected people who are vaccinated is on the rise. Many are asymptomatic carriers, which is why the CDC urged all Americans, vaccinated or not, to resume wearing masks in indoor public places in areas where transmission rates are substantial or high. The 7-day case rate in the state of Michigan recently has climbed to 1,743 as of the end of last week. On June 22nd, that case number was just at 133 daily cases average over a 7-day period. The 7-day average daily positivity rate in the testing, the percentage of COVID-19 tests tracked by the state that come back positive, jumped from 1.2% on June 22nd to 8.7% last week. That is a major jump, and of course, with the threshold for evidence of community spread on the low end being about 3%, we're almost triple that at that point now, whereas back on June 22nd, we were well below that mark, being only at 1.2%. The number of average daily deaths over a 7-day period dipped substantially after the state's pandemic restrictions were rescinded, falling from 13 on June 22nd to just 2 on August 9th. But that average has quickly climbed back up to 17 as of last week, Wednesday. About 5 million people ages 12 and older are fully vaccinated, about 52% of the eligible population in Michigan, but vaccination trends have dropped from a 7-day daily average of 15,000 total shots on June 22nd to anywhere from 9,000 to 10,000 shots delivered daily on average in August. And you can find that article on our website, civiccentertv.com, and go to the full article. That'll take you to the full article from Dave Boucher and others at the Detroit Free Press. Also making headlines at civiccentertv.com/coronavirus. Healthcare workers protest Henry Ford Macomb Hospital's forced vaccination. This from the Oakland Press. Carrying signs with messages such as "Unmask our children" and "I do not co-parent with the government," hundreds of healthcare workers and others held a rally in front of a Clinton Township hospital Sunday to protest forced vaccinations. As of noon, an estimated 2,000 people lined both sides of the sidewalk along 19 Mile Road, west of Garfield, in front of Henry Ford Macomb Hospital. They barked slogans, waved to passing cars as motorists honked their horns, and sang "God Bless America" on a steamy, hot afternoon. They were protesting mandatory COVID-19 vaccinations for employees, contractors, and other workers of which September 10th is the deadline to undergo the treatment or face, quote, voluntary termination. "My employer is not going to tell me that I have to take the shot," said Frank Tanner, who said he worked at Henry Ford. Quote, continues forward, "When I was hired, I wasn't told I'd have to have a shot. Now, 35 years later, they're forcing me to take one. We all know in Oakland and Macomb counties it's about the votes and it's about the money. I will be doggone if you're going to tell us we have to take a shot. No, it's tyranny." Now, it's a job requirement. Many other places have job requirements, and you don't like it, you can find another job. Protesters say they aren't opposed to the vaccine itself. Are you? Are you not opposed to it now? The whole purpose of that entire rally was, don't tell me to get the vaccine. I think they would go one and the other together, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm not interpreting this correctly. Some on Sunday acknowledge they've received it. It's the fact that the business or government can force that as a condition of employment that they've objected to. Don Parkinson of Macomb County, who is not a healthcare worker but is acting as a mouthpiece for some, said Sunday's rally attracted many outside of the healthcare industry who are simply, quote, freedom fighters, end close quote. He continued on, quote, "If they end up firing a third of their staff because they don't want the shot, the hospital will have to terminate people in order to accomplish that. That's unfortunate. We don't want to see people lose their jobs. We want to see them have a choice in the matter," end close quote, Parkinson said. Henry Ford Health System became the first known health system in the state to require all 33,000 of its employees to get vaccinated. Bob Riney, president and CEO of Henry Ford Health System, said in a statement that vaccines are safe, effective, and, quote, the most powerful tool available to fight the pandemic. The recent decision by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, to grant full approval to the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine further solidified that what we already know. As the first health system in Michigan to require vaccination for our workforce, we remain confident in our decision and are pleased to see broad support for a vaccine requirement across healthcare and in other industries, Riney said in a statement. So it comes down to a couple of things. Sure, the government and businesses telling people what to do in certain cases is going to always be met with opposition. People want to have their own free will and don't want to be, for lack of better terms, forced into a situation. That being said, in this case, you're working in a healthcare setting. You are working in a situation where a lot of people who have vulnerable health themselves are coming into these hospitals, and these hospitals are already filling up massively. They want to prevent the spread of COVID-19, including to those that are in the hospitals, but especially to those that may have other compromised health conditions that put them in the hospital. So when you're not vaccinated, you put that at risk. And the hospital's entire purpose of their daily work is to help treat people with varying medical conditions and help cure the sick. And if you're putting the hospital in a position where you could potentially have more people get sick in your facility, that of course is bad for business. So what do? They put measures in place that prevent something that's bad for business. It's like if you're a grocery store and you go in there and you put a policy in place that we're not going to give out free groceries to every fifth person that walks into the store. If they put that in place, that's probably bad for business. And if the fifth person to walk into a store in a given hour walks out with their groceries and doesn't pay for it, they're not going to say, well, it's their choice. They're going to say, no, you've got to pay for your groceries. It's a similar situation in that it's bad for business to do one thing, it's bad for business to do another thing, so there are policies in place. And if you don't like it, you have other choices that you can make, and you can go to healthcare systems that don't have those regulations in place. It's a balancing act for everybody involved, including the healthcare systems and including the healthcare workers. Now, that being said, everybody has the right to protest, everybody has the right to speak out, and that includes those healthcare workers who protested over the weekend and have protested before. And we should not be necessarily angry at them or frustrated with them for protesting. That being said, if you want to have your voice heard, expect to have voices heard back that are opposing to your point of view. Moving on from that to a couple more happier stories here in the state of Michigan. Good news for our businesses, as Bridge Michigan is reporting. Michigan's largest public companies are, quote, encouraged by second quarter rebound. Michigan's largest publicly traded companies have mounted a strong comeback since the COVID-19 pandemic sent them reeling last year. The latest corporate financial filings from the state's biggest employers show the revenues in the second quarter of this year rebounded to levels achieved in the same period in 2019, before the pandemic devastated the global economy. Combined revenues for 30 of these top firms dropped 40% in 2020 from $128 billion in quarter two of 2019 to $77 billion in the second quarter of 2020, with the $128 billion being the previous number in 2019. Then rose from 60% to $123 billion this year. So in total, that would be a $5 billion drop between the second quarter of 2019, pre-pandemic, and the second quarter of this year, of course, still in the thick of the COVID-19 pandemic. Many of the companies have demonstrated optimism that the recovery will continue by reinstating share buybacks, increasing dividends, paying down debt, and issuing improved financial outlooks for the remainder of the year. Quote, "We are encouraged by the healthy sales pipelines and the new wins we're seeing across all of our platforms," said Peter Quigley, CEO of Troy-based staffing company Kelly Services. Said in a statement, "Our reinstatement of a dividend for the quarter reflects the progress we're making and our confidence in the economic recovery." On Kelly's quarterly call with industry and analysts, Quigley noted, quote, "The temporary labor market is approaching pre-COVID levels. The unemployment crisis in the U.S. has eased with 3 months of steady job growth, and demand for staffing and other workforce solutions continues to grow. We have had a strong recovery so far. Big businesses have done well," says Gabe Elric, the economic forecaster at the University of Michigan. State's unemployment rate dropped to 4.8% in July, but compared with February of 2020, the labor force has shrunk by 213,000 people, and 256,000 fewer Michigan residents are working, according to data from the Michigan Department of Technology, Management, and Budget and the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So good economic news after a really tough year for a lot of businesses, including some of the larger businesses in the state. I'd be interested to see the data on some of the smaller businesses and how their recovery is. Of course, in this case, this is 30 of the largest corporations in the state of Michigan who are seeing that economic recovery. That may not be the case for smaller businesses that don't have as much name recognition, as much backing, and the financial war chest that some of these larger corporations have. But nonetheless, those larger corporations and their ability to rebound is often symptomatic of what we will see across the business sectors in the state of Michigan and in the U.S. economy. Lastly, great news on the baseball diamond over the weekend. This from the Detroit News with the Little League Baseball World Series Championship on the line. Hamilton, Ohio got 14 runners on base compared to 10 for Michigan's very own Taylor North. What Taylor North did with those runners and its own and Hamilton's is the reason the team is returning home as the first Michigan Little League World Series champion in 62 years. Jackson Surma drove in 4 runs, and Taylor North limited Hamilton to 1 run in 5 plate appearances over 3 bases-loaded situations Sunday during a 5-2 victory in the championship game in the Little League World Series. Quote, "We're getting ready to celebrate with a lot of very important people that have been waiting to celebrate with us," said Taylor North manager Rick Thorning, of players and coaches reuniting with the rest of their families after largely being kept apart for COVID protocols during the Great Lakes Regional and the Little League World Series. The clutch performances that made the celebration possible started right from the first inning. Taylor North never had a bases-loaded opportunity, but went 5 for 14 with runners on base. With runners in scoring position, it was 2 for 8 for Jackson Surma's hits, driving in 4 runs, and Fergus producing another on and out. An error-free defense turned a double play that was turned a double play when it was still a 2-run game in the 5th inning, and they got an extra out when Thorning quickly spotted and threw out the confused base runner. Farner, the shortstop, started the double play that Van Bell, another player of theirs, turned from his second base position. The rest came from Van Bell and Hewlin pitching through a difficult situation on a day when they threw almost as many balls, 62, as they did strikes, 74. Taylor North breezed through the postseason with just one loss in its last 16 games, coming earlier this week to Hawaii, the team that it beat 2-1 on Saturday to advance to the championship game. On Sunday, Taylor North beat Hamilton, Ohio, a team it also beat in its Great Lakes Regional Final. 2 teams from each U.S. regional advanced to Williamsport this year with no international teams due to COVID-19. The run by Taylor North caught the attention of baseball fans and dignitaries all over Michigan, with the Tigers announcing scores at Comerica Park, college coaches sharing words of encouragement on Twitter, Governor Whitmer sending congratulations and good luck messages on social media, and Michigan basketball star Hunter Dickinson even attending a game earlier on in the tournament. Detroit Tigers manager A.J. Hinch taped a Sunday message to the team as well. Quote, "Bring that championship home," Hinch said from Comerica Park. "Play hard, have fun, score some runs, play some good defense. We're rooting for you." The Tigers tweeted congratulations moments after the final out. The team, which also included Noah Bourne, Max LaForest, Jackson Shuffield, and Cale Harris, joins the 1959 Hamtramck squad as Michigan's only champion. So big congratulations to the Taylor North baseball team on their huge accomplishment, bringing home the first Little League World Series championship to the Great Lakes State in 62 years. An excellent run. They played great ball, and of course that results in championships. So congratulations, Taylor North. You guys worked hard this summer, and you're bringing home the hardware, and it's about to be a really fun couple of weeks for you as you meet a lot of other people in the state of Michigan who have been admiring you all at this time, and certainly will maybe even have a chance to meet some of their heroes on the baseball diamond. I know the Detroit Tigers franchise has been very excited in their celebration of the Taylor North baseball team after their great accomplishments in the Little League World Series. Well, great accomplishments on the baseball diamond. We have some great accomplishments to make here in the TV studio today with an excellent show ahead for you. On the other side of the break, we're a little bit late, a little bit behind time, so I apologize to our first guest. We'll be speaking with someone from the Woodside Bible Church in Lake Orion, and then at the bottom of the hour, we'll be joined by Nicola Suarez from Kelly Education Services. Then at the top of the next hour, Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzni from Temple Shir Shalom will join us, and in the second hour of the show, we'll be joined by Christopher Cousins, certified Exit Planning Advisor and C.A.P and member of the Q5 Experience. And then to cap off the show, we'll be joined by Haith and Henry Johnson from LeHost Hair and Wigs in Ferndale to talk about one of their upcoming fundraisers. That and more coming up. You are watching and listening to the Megacast.
Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at iVaccinate.org.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior. These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance. They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different. One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games? Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Today, it is easier than ever to join Michigan's Organ Donor Registry and help build a bridge of hope for organ, tissue, and eye donation. Just one person can potentially save or help improve the lives of up to 75 people. By joining, your legacy could be the gift of life. Sign up today at michigan.gov/SOS or at any of the more than 145 Secretary of State self-service stations located across Michigan. Be part of Michigan's Bridge of Hope by adding your name to the Organ Donor Registry.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
211, how can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function.
Which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe in the studios of our stations here in West Bloomfield Township at Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM, as we're joined by a number of different community television and radio stations, as well as other outlets online throughout the state of Michigan, including My Michigan TV, which you can find online at mymitv.com, as well as on your smartphone app store and on Roku TV, Apple TV, Android TV, Fire TV, and other smart TV apps as well, and watch Michigan content made by Michigan creators from all across the state, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on My Michigan TV. And you can watch the Megacast as well each and every day, live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, as well as some of our archived interviews as well on My Michigan TV and on civiccentertv.com. Interviews with interesting people, such as our first guest today, Jon Dahlke. He is the Community Outreach and Next Steps Director at Woodside Bible Church in Lake Orion. Jon, thanks for being with us today. Jon, you with us?
He is. I have him potted up. He's not coming through.
Just asking Calvin, can you see by chance if he is muted on the Zoom? We're going to just wait a moment here as Jon makes some adjustments. So Calvin, go ahead and you can go ahead and cut his mic for now so Larry can work with him, make sure his audio is all set and good. And we'll keep it here. So Jon, of course, is the Community Outreach and Next Step Director at Woodside Bible Church in Lake Orion. They got a lot of great efforts going on right now that we'll be talking with Jon with here in just a moment. And until then, we'll keep giving you some more information about where you can find interviews like this and others on our website, civiccentertv.com/megacast. You can also find more information about our partnering television and radio stations. Of course, 89.3 Lakes FM is on lakesfm.com, but if you don't want to type that in, you're not going to remember that website, go to our civiccentertv.com Megacast page and click on Lakes FM. You'll find more information on the Big 89 right there. So Larry's telling me that Jon's audio is good. Let's go ahead and fire him up here. And Jon, are you with us? Can you hear me? I'm still not hearing him, Calvin, so something might be up there. You got the right thing potted up and all that? Yeah. Okay, let's take a quick break here then, Calvin, and we'll get this technical situation sorted out on our end here. So we're going to take a quick break. We'll be back after these brief messages. You're watching and listening to the Megacast on our family of television, radio, and other media outlets.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. You know, being 27 and a mom and a wife and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
A message from the staff of Michigan's Crime Victim Compensation Program.
Anyone can be a victim of crime
and suffer lasting trauma, physically, emotionally, and financially.
But you are not alone.
If you're struggling financially due to a crime,
we're here
for you.
Find out if you qualify for crime victim compensation.
Call 877-251-7373 or visit michigan.gov/crime-victim.
A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Victim Services.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you didn't. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
Who is struggling right now?
I am.
My son is.
Many are struggling with anxiety, depression, and substance use. Before it becomes a crisis, reach out to MyCal, the Michigan Crisis and Access Line for free confidential support 24/7. Available in the Upper Peninsula and Oakland County. Just call or text 1-844-44-MyCal or chat online at michigan.gov/MyCal. A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. You know, being 27 and a mom and a wife and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
Motorcyclists are hard to see. To keep everyone safer, it's important to always look for them and know where most crashes occur. 84% of motorcycle and vehicle crashes happen on streets, not highways. And most crashes with motorcyclists occur when vehicle drivers are turning left. So before turning, especially to the left, make sure you look for motorcyclists. Then look again. It could save a life.
To Sophia and Gabriel. Even though these old knees can't follow on your adventure to the forest today, these flowers represent my love. These stitches and threads join us together. And wherever you see a flower, a bird, a beautiful tree, know that my love is with you.
Make the forest part of your story at a park near you. Find one at discovertheforest.org.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
People are getting out to walk and bike in higher numbers. More vulnerable road users and higher speed traffic can be a dangerous combination. Crash severity has increased, so if you're driving, be sure to slow down and look for people. There's no need to speed. If you're biking, ride with traffic. If you're walking, avoid stepping into the road if possible. If you have to walk in the street, walk facing traffic. Learn more at walkbikedrivesafe.org.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help. Parents do a lot of worrying. Get your kids caught up on childhood vaccines to protect them from these 14 preventable diseases, and you'll have 14 fewer things to worry about. Vaccines are safe and effective and save lives. So let's get caught up on vaccines and worry about something else. Get the facts at iVaccinate.org.
One of the things you can look for in your friends is a change in behavior. These can be big changes, they can be small changes in mood, physical appearance. They may be sleeping less or sleeping more, drinking more, or their eating patterns may be different. One big change that can be pretty obvious is change in motivation. Do they no longer want to play basketball? Do they no longer want to play video games? Now that we're spending more time online and in virtual settings, it's really important to pay attention to the language that your friend is using and the words they're using to communicate.
So when we text our friends, are they taking longer amounts of time to respond? Are they not responding at all? You don't have to be an expert to try to recognize these signs. The second that you feel it in your gut and that you're concerned, that's the second to have the conversation and open the door to what might be going on.
Whatever gets you talking.
Welcome back to Megacast. I'm Tyler Keith in the studios for our flagship station, Civic Center TV and 89.3 Lakes FM in West Bloomfield. We're pleased to be joined by our first guest today, Jon Dahlke. He is the Community Outreach and Next Steps Director at Woodside Bible Church in Lake Orion. Joining us today on the Megacast. Jon, thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So for those that are unfamiliar with Woodside Bible Church, it's in Lake Orion. Where is it located, and what kind of sets this church apart from other religious institutions in our local area?
I would say, I don't know what sets it apart, but we are, Woodside Bible Church is actually 15 campuses across Metro Detroit. This is one location in Lake Orion. We're right off Joslin Road in Canterbury Village. We actually, about 7 years ago, we bought the Always Christmas store from Canterbury Village, and that is the building that we're in now.
We're joined by Jon Dahlke. He's the Community Outreach and Next Steps Director at Woodside Bible Church out of Lake Orion. Of course, it's located on the campus of Canterbury Village. And as of 9 o'clock this morning, Jon, your church opened the Village Food Pantry located at Canterbury Village to help local families, of course, in need of food assistance. So what can people expect at Village Food Pantry? What are some of the needs that, now that it's off and running, from the community to be able to help our neighbors in our local community through this new food pantry?
Yeah, so we've seen people already respond in so many different ways. Through Canterbury Village, with the Aldridge family, they have festivals almost every weekend. And through those festivals, we actually collect food. And so he has people bring food and we collect it in that. So it's been super cool to see the generosity of the people already. But if people want to make donations, they can donate food by getting a hold of us here at Woodside Bible Church. Or if they want to make a monetary donation, they can write a check to Woodside Bible Church and put in the memo, food pantry, several different ways.
And obviously the purpose of this food pantry, of opening this food pantry, of partnering with Canterbury Village on this, is to make sure that families that are going without food or are food insecure and aren't getting enough food to properly feed themselves, feed their children, feed their entire family, that to make sure that they're getting that food in an efficient way, but also getting healthy food and access to healthy meals. So for those that are in need of healthy food and access to food to feed their families, when can they get food? How can they get involved in getting food from this food pantry through Woodside Bible Church in Canterbury Village?
So there's a couple different ways. One, through the pandemic, we actually partnered with Forgotten Harvest, which is a big organization. We partner with them. We have been going, I think it's over 65 weeks now. We've been providing food up to as many as 500 households in the area. That's households. It's crazy how many people are in need. Yeah. Now we just did one this morning, and it's a mobile food pantry, and it is actually, we're down to about 250 households at the moment. But this pantry we opened in addition to this so that people could actually come at any time, during the week more. So right now we're open from 10:30 to 2:30 on Monday and Wednesday. We're hoping to open up some more time slots throughout the week, but right now we're starting out with 10:30 to 2:30 on Monday and Wednesday. And you can just come as you are, and we want to provide you with food if you're in need.
We're joined by Jon Dahlke. He's the Community Outreach and Next Steps Director of Woodside Bible Church in Lake Orion with us today on the Megacast. And in terms of operations, is this entirely volunteer run, or are there employees of Woodside Bible Church that are also contributing to this? Who is running this food pantry?
So basically, yeah, that will be me. I'll be managing it. And then we have a great community and a wonderful volunteer base. Tons of people have stepped up and said, hey, I want to be a part of this. I want to volunteer. And so it will be run by volunteers mainly. In time slots of 2 hours. We might narrow that down to an hour. I don't know yet. We're just going to kick this off and see how it goes.
Jon, as you mentioned, you had that partnership earlier on in the pandemic with Forgotten Harvest, and we've seen over the course of the last year and a half plus that we've been dealing with COVID-19 and the effects of that economically and throughout our community and in the greater community as well. But beyond that partnership with Forgotten Harvest, what else kind of sparked not only the need for, hey, our Woodside Bible Church has to do something to help these people in this community. We want to do something to help people that are food insecure as a result of the pandemic or other circumstances as well. When did it go from that to a situation of we want to open a food pantry to be direct helpers in our community to get people in Lake Orion and the local area the food that they desperately need?
Yeah, so obviously we're a church. Our main goal is to help people and love people. And so what we wanted to do is we want to meet the needs of people. And so someone else who is very passionate about this is Keith and Angie Aldridge, who own Canterbury Village. And Keith and I were talking one day, and we were like, man, wouldn't it be cool to open our own food pantry? And so we put our minds together and we partnered with Canterbury. So it's not all Woodside, it's Canterbury Village too. We're in a partnership with them, and they are very passionate about the food and feeding people. And I remember Keith telling me, he's like, there's no way that anyone should be hungry in our township, in our area. And so he's super passionate about it and super generous through this. But we are partnering with them, and it was an idea that we thought we could do. And so over the last few months, we've found a place for it in the building. We've remodeled that. We've had tons of volunteers come and help with that process, and it's been cool to see the response. And so it started out a thought and began to just form over time, and now we have a full-blown food pantry.
We're joined by Jon Dahlke. He's the Community Outreach and Next Steps Director at Woodside Bible Church, with us on the Oakland County Megacast. And Jon, in terms of the items that are being looked for to be donated and to be brought in, what exactly is the Village Food Pantry looking for? What are the immediate needs right now as you're kicking this off today, as you had your grand opening? What do you need to bring in to best serve those who you're providing food to in our community?
Yeah, I think some of the needs that we need now, we have a ton of canned food. And so I don't know necessarily that we need canned food. Right now we're looking at like packaged food. If people wanted to donate stuff, it would be like cereal, boxes of granola bars, oatmeal, stuff like that that's packaged. Not necessarily canned goods. We have tons of canned goods. And then in the future, we're looking to possibly do some cold storage. So we're looking to get some refrigeration and some freezers. Keith and Angie were super generous this morning at the grand opening and donated a $5,000 check to actually pay for some of this stuff. So it was super cool to see that. We really appreciate that and them. And yeah, it would be a lot of that type of stuff right now that would mainly be needed.
How important in this entire process, or how vital in this entire process, was it to have that partnership with Canterbury Village? Not only in that you have the location on their campus, not only for your church, but also for this food pantry, but also for the promotional aspects, for that community outreach aspect, as the more eyes you get on a situation like this, the more people you can reach and get the information about just what is the food insecurity situation in our community. And that inspires people to then donate and then volunteer. So how important overall for Woodside Bible Church in forming the Village Food Pantry was it to have that partnership with Canterbury Village?
I think it's super important because as a church, we want to be in the community. We don't want to be just a church that's looked at as we're separate. We want to be a part of the community. We want to help the community. And so to have partnerships like Canterbury Village, we're a part of their village. There's many stores here. And we're a part of this village, and we want to be a part of that village. Not only that, we have a good relationship with the township and all the officials there. And so, it's something that we want to be out in our community. And so it's important for us as a church to build relationships with those people in our community, and so that we find the needs and we can see the needs firsthand. And sometimes we as a church don't see that, but we want to be a church that people, when they do have needs, whether it's they're going through a rough time, they need prayer or they need food or whatever it may be, we want to be the church that is there for them. And so it's really important to have those partnerships, I think.
We're joined by Jon Dahlke. He is the Community Outreach and Next Steps Director of Woodside Bible Church, with us today on the Megacast. And in terms of volunteers, are you looking for them right now? And what capacity do you need more community involvement beyond just the donations in order to not only start off the Village Food Pantry strong, but also to maintain it in a strong nature and continue to be able to best serve the people in the community that you're serving through this effort?
Yeah, volunteers are important. I couldn't do this without volunteers and people willing to step up and serve people. And so, like I said earlier, we've seen a good response from people, and a lot of people want to get involved. If people still want to get involved, they can go to woodsidebible.org and go to our Lake Orion campus, and they can find it there. And it'll actually go right to my email. They can email me. I'll get them the sign-up genius that we have for that, and they can sign up to serve. And as we see those time slots fill up, we may open another day, evenings, stuff like that. We'd love to have it available all week for people.
And what are the Village Pantry's hours, both for volunteer opportunities, but also more importantly, even for those that do need to come and pick up food to feed themselves and feed their families?
Yeah, so right now we're starting out really small, just trying to get it open. And it's going to be Monday, Wednesdays from 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. For volunteers and for people that want to pick up food. We need 2 people that just kind of man the store, or whatever you want to call it, the food pantry. And then, we have still, I think there are still 10 pallets of food, canned goods and such down there that need to be sorted through and put on shelves and checked expiration dates, all that stuff. So, there's a lot of opportunity there.
We're joined by Jon Dahlke. He is the Community Outreach and Next Steps Director of Woodside Bible Church in Lake Orion, joining us today to talk about the Village Food Pantry, which as of 9 a.m. today is open. It will have its hours, distributions Mondays and Wednesdays from 10:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. Anybody in need is welcome to walk in anytime on those distribution days for assistance. And for more information, you can you can visit woodsidebible.org and learn more. So Jon, as we open the food pantry today, what's the response been like from the community, and as you've begun this effort, as Woodside Bible Church and Canterbury Village have begun this effort, does it seem like there's enthusiasm from the community to really get behind this effort from the onset and help a lot of people in our local area who, even though we're a year and a half into this and there have been ebbs and flows in terms of the impact of COVID-19 on our communities, that there's still a lot of people that are feeling these severe impacts of the pandemic in their everyday lives?
Yeah, we had a great response this morning. We had the township out there, several different officials and other people out there. There was people that were there for Forgotten Harvest because that was open at 9 a.m. also this morning, the line. And so we provided breakfast, Yates Donuts. Who doesn't love Yates Donuts? But we had Yates Donuts out there for all the people that were lined up in their cars to pick up food, and so that they would see that the Village Pantry is open. 120 cars out there. So there was just a real excitement, I think, from all the people that we were able to do this and then pull this off. And so, I think there's going to be a big push through the community to be a part of this. And so it should be really good.
We're joined by Jon Dahlke. He's the Community Outreach and Next Steps Director of Woodside Bible Church in Lake Orion. Jon, just a few more minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Is there anything else that you believe would be important for our audience to know about the Village Food Pantry, or anything else interesting that's going on or coming up soon through Woodside Bible Church?
Like I said, we're a church of 15 campuses throughout Metro Detroit. We have them all over. You can go to woodsidebible.org to find out more. And again, we're just a church that loves people and wants to help and meet the needs of people. So if you're in one of the areas where our campus is, definitely come check us out. We'd love to have you there and come join us. So,
Jon, we appreciate your time today. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Jon Dahlke, he is the Community Outreach and Next Steps Director at Woodside Bible Church in Lake Orion that just opened its Village Food Pantry today, located at Canterbury Village, to help local families in need of food assistance. If you need food, if you're in need of this food assistance, you can pick up food at the distribution days, Mondays and Wednesdays, 10:30 a.m. until 2:30 p.m. And food items can be dropped off at Woodside Bible Church in Lake Orion from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday. They suggest packaged foods like cereal, pasta, packaged rice and potatoes, macaroni and cheese, and other boxed and non-perishable food items. To learn more, visit woodsidebible.org to find out how you can volunteer, how you can donate and help provide absolutely necessary and really at this point in time still critical services to a number of people in our community, both in Lake Orion and in the Oakland County area, but also throughout southeastern Michigan, as there's still a lot of issues related to COVID-19, and food insecurity is one of the bigger ones that's still affecting a lot of people throughout the state of Michigan, throughout the United States as we continue through this pandemic. Things may be looking sunnier overall than they were a year ago, than they were a year and a half ago, but for many, it's not a sunnier situation now than it was then. In some cases, for many, it is a lot worse, and we need to provide as much help as we can to them as we continue through this crisis, because like in everything else that pertains to COVID-19, pertains to crises like this pandemic, it's a situation that we need help each other out of. We don't do this individually. We're going to take a break. On the other side, as schools are beginning their school year, there's still a great need in many school districts for full-time teachers, for substitute teachers, for para-educators, and those job openings are for those that are not necessarily just having had prior experience in education. It's for people in a number of different interest levels, a number of different academic levels as well, and these jobs are available. They're looking for quality candidates to help in a school year that's, again, going to be like nothing we've seen before and far from normal. We'll, on the other side of the break, speak with the president of Kelly Education Services, Nicola Suarez, about the upcoming fall programs and education talent outreach and recruitment. That coming up next. You're watching the Megacast and you're listening on your radio home for the Megacast, 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake and 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
How can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources. Call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
How does marijuana affect the teen brain?
Our brains are still developing into our 20s.
With regular use, marijuana can affect teen brain development.
It can affect our brain's circuitry and blood flow and impair thinking, learning, and memory function,
which could hold us back from reaching our potential.
Don't let marijuana mess with your brain.
Get the facts at michigan.gov/drug-free.
Is education, and one organization is helping to provide some of the talent that is necessary to help provide the great education that our students are able to get here in Oakland County and southeastern Michigan and all throughout the state. And one of those organizations is Kelly Education. We're pleased to be joined by Nicole Suarez. She is the president of Kelly Education with us today on the Megacast. Nicola, thanks for being with us today.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. So as we head into fall and we head into the school year, last year about this time, there was a real struggle, it seemed, or a scramble to try to find the necessary amount of substitute teachers to accommodate another uncertain school year. Heading into this school year, just in the last few months, it seemed like things were going to be a little more positive. We were going to have less of these COVID-19 cases. Things were starting to sort of fizzle out in terms of severe outbreaks of COVID-19 or high community transmission of COVID-19, which is, of course, of great concern when it comes to our teachers and our educators heading toward in-person learning. The case is different now. Right now, our communities, by and large, 81 of the state's 83 counties are in a high or substantial transmission rate in terms of community spread with COVID-19. So as we're heading into this school year, are we seeing a similar greater need and struggle and scramble to find those substitute teachers that may very well be necessary, especially with in-person learning, by and large being the case this school year?
Yeah, thank you, Tyler. I think the question that you're asking is a really important one, and I would say absolutely. Kelly Education is in 45 states across the country, and I would tell you that every single public school district, charter school, independent parochial is in the same situation of needing that instructional talent. But what I will tell you, what we are seeing, yes, we do need to have our substitute teachers in place, but it's the way that they're being used for their talent, meaning that we have just an enormous amount of full-time teacher vacancies that staffing providers are having to fulfill right now. So last year around this time, we saw an increase of about 34%. That year-over-year increase that we're seeing across the country, particularly with our talent pool, has risen to about 50%. So that's 50% of the demand of talent pools that are substitute teachers are now being used to accommodate for those full-time teacher vacancies that our schools can't hire right now because of the shortage. So not only do we have the day-to-day, but we also have the vacancy factor that we're having to support.
Nicola Suarez joins us on the Megacast. She is the president of Kelly Education. And with that situation being what it is, with there being a greater need now, not only for substitutes, but for full-time teachers, are we finding that because there's so many of those openings across so many different districts, and not only there's that, but there's also the need for substitute teachers in every one of these districts and every one of these county-wide consortiums are looking to fill those positions at the same rate and at the same time with the same urgency. And also given the situation where we've had a lot of teachers that have retired or that have full-on just quit and moved on to different career paths or are refusing to go back in person because of their own concerns for themselves or their families, are we finding it harder across the board to find good candidates, quality candidates, to put the best educators possible in our classrooms for our kids?
Yeah, I definitely think we're definitely challenged by finding the qualified educators that we need, not only in the main sort of academic classrooms from K through 12, but also in our special ed classrooms and so forth. And so unlike all other industries, education is also still, in that same boat as well, which, as a talent provider, given our knowledge, particularly around the science of recruitment and engagement of our candidates to place, it definitely, our operating teams are working 24/7 around the clock, trying to accommodate that needs. It just means that we have to get more creative in the way that we engage and how we find our talent in all the different channels that we have. But I am very encouraged with what I see, because we do see folks coming into the education profession, even if it's on a temporary basis or a full-time basis, that it's very mission-minded. And so we've got a lot of folks that have decided to change careers, as we know, and maybe do something that's more purpose-driven. So we have a lot of those folks. We're starting to also see a lot of younger folks come into the profession as well, what we call momentum seekers. Those are those folks that really would like to define how the way that they want to live in terms of how they want to work. So it might be a combination of different kinds of assignments or different kinds of work opportunities, and substitute teaching really fits that bill, because they get to decide in terms of their schedule or, where they would like to put their focus.
So with that, Nicola, as we're heading into the school year, as we're trying to get in front as much as we can this late in the game of the full-time and substitute teacher needs throughout the state, but focusing mostly here in Oakland County, as we're looking at that, what are our school districts looking for in terms of filling those positions? Because obviously you want someone that has, you'd like to have someone that has education experience, that's taught kids in a certain age group that they may be teaching going into this job or that job, or have some educational background altogether so that they are more familiar with the ins and outs of being an educator in today's classrooms. But beyond that, as people are shifting into this industry, what are these school districts looking for, and who should be seeking these jobs if they're looking on the market?
Yeah, I would tell you every single state has their different set of credentialing criteria in terms of what it would take to be either a teacher or also a substitute teacher. Michigan, amongst many of the states, have sort of a higher level of credentialing criteria, which is a good thing. I think mostly our school districts or schools in general, they're looking for individuals that, if they come in as a substitute teacher, that they have, usually a minimum of a 4-year degree. But also providers like ourselves, we also provide a lot of training, if you will, and continued education in terms of, supporting instruction, classroom management, what it requires to be a substitute teacher. So always, whether it's a public school district, if it's a staffing provider, are always trying to hire the most credentialed individual with the minimum requirements at a minimum in terms of what it takes to be a substitute teacher. So I would tell you that, those are requirements. They're not skirted around. They are full on a part of the hiring process.
We're joined by Nicola Suarez. She is the president of Kelly Education with us today on the Megacast. And Kelly, I'd also like to discuss the mask mandates as well, because that's beginning to affect our schools, especially here in southeastern Michigan, as Oakland County earlier this week put their own mask mandate in place. It's expected that Wayne County will make a decision on mask mandates in some form today, as they were in discussions late last night as well, and that was reported this morning from the Detroit News that they're expected to make that decision today. How are the COVID-19 regulations that are being put in place by school districts and by local counties, how is that affecting the hiring process? Because for some that would be interested in these jobs, those mandates being in place, those regulations and safeguards being in place would be vitally important. But for others that may not be for those regulations, that could be something that deters them from taking these jobs.
Right. Well, it's masks. It might be the potential of mandatory vaccines as well, right? Yeah. Typically, I can speak from our perspective. We always follow the protocol of a particular school or a public school district in terms of mask mandates. What we are seeing across the country, and Oakland County is no different, they are putting mask mandates in place. And why? Because we know that those as a tool works. It prevents disease. We know that it can protect our children, our faculty. And so that's why you see that sort of becoming across the board, particularly for our students that are under the age of 12 and unvaccinated. It's a really important protocol that we have along with all the other safety protocols. Do we see if some folks choose not to do it? Yeah, we do. But for the most part, it's very minimal. We don't see a lot of people just saying, I'm not going to do this because I don't want to wear a mask. So I'm very pleased that a lot of people are adhering to that and understand the requirement and the reasons behind it.
We're joined by Nicola Suarez, president of Kelly Education, with us today on the Megacast. And Kelly, I want to talk to you also about the impact of ESSER funding, or to define that better, Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund funding, and how that is helping to, how that is having an impact on our education system. Because in some cases it's increasing, there's an increased need for tutors, and there's an increased and then those are being used differently from state to state and from institution to institution. How are those funds, especially now as we're heading into another uncertain year, how are those generally being utilized here in Michigan? And what are some of the differences in how those funds are distributed district to district and area to area?
Yeah, I mean, you see it across the board. I think what's key here is the flexibility of those funds and how districts are able to use them. And so it's really, they get to make the decisions in terms of what is best for their particular schools, district. We see that across the country. As an example, $29 billion that were earmarked for tutoring services, which is fantastic. Yeah. And so, what we've seen, we've had folks that are opting to buy sort of virtual tutoring services. Maybe it's software that's being deployed. It's an intervention instructional tool platform. Or you've got other districts that are raising their hand to actually have tutoring services, actual human beings, if you will, that will come in during the school day and to do small group tutoring services, depending on what that need's going to be. What has been very interesting, specifically around tutoring, is that I would say every district agrees that they need to have it as a pillar of instruction. So we have seen that. And actually our services have been in huge demand around that. We just recently did a research study with EdWeek, and we had over 2,500 participants, administrators, teachers, parents, students participating. And what I think the headline for me that was really, really surprising was the difference in terms of perception of how much tutoring services were going to be needed for our children to help with learning recovery. And our, not a surprise, but, administrators and teachers think that the length of time to actually provide tutoring services is going to last into a couple of years, where parents thought it might be a shorter time period. So, obviously our teachers are very engaged with their students. They realize that many of our schools or students fell behind, particularly when it was in a virtual sort of a situation. So there's a lot of demand and need for tutoring in all shapes and form, if you will. And it's no different here in Michigan. We're seeing a whole variety of different needs and demands for tutoring services, regardless if it's done virtually or by software, by paper, by person. But I'm very pleased that the Biden administration was able to really provide funding that could be flexible in the decision making, and more importantly, for the next couple of years.
And because of the flexibility of those funds, and I'm not an expert on this, so I want to pick your brain on it, because prior to the pandemic, certainly during the pandemic, and definitely after the pandemic, childcare is going to become a much greater issue. And so can these funds, particularly because they would be executed from school districts, are school districts then able to utilize these funds, or have they in some cases then gone ahead and utilized these funds to provide additional childcare that gives some relief to parents as well, especially for those that are sending their kids back to in-person learning and are then also going back into the office and may not be able to provide that additional childcare, or have to potentially leave their jobs to pick their child up from school?
Yeah, we haven't really seen any of that per se. I know that the Biden administration is really talking a lot about funding additional funding for pre-K.
Okay.
So, and that's age 3 and up as an extension of K through 12. So, universally, I think that a lot of folks would agree that that is a critical opportunity for our students, which also would help to accommodate for parents as well.
We're joined by Nicola Suarez. She is the president of Kelly Education, with us today on the Megacast. And Kelly, as we continue on into the school year, and we're looking to get teachers into the classroom, additional teachers in the classroom, substitutes, if people are interested in these jobs, what are the first steps that they should take, particularly for those that don't have education backgrounds necessarily, but also for those that do have education backgrounds and either are recently retired but want to get back in to provide some additional service, or are looking to switch jobs?
Yeah, great question. So the first thing to do, I would say, is log on to your local public school district or different schools' websites, if you will, just to see how you apply and what the credentialing criteria is. Outside of that, you can always come to a staffing provider like ourselves. Like if you go to kellyeducation.com, there's also information on how you can apply to be as a candidate, and then to get additional information in order to be a substitute teacher.
We're joined by Nicola Suarez. She is the president of Kelly Education, with us on the Megacast, and just a few more minutes with you today before we'll say goodbye. So before we do, is there anything else that would be interesting for our audience to know, or important for our audience to know, about the pursuit of more educators to put in the classroom right now, or other issues that are affecting our educators and our school districts as we head into this new school year?
Yeah, I think what's always not lost on me, I'm a former teacher myself. I started my career that way too. There is a lot of focus on socio-emotional wellness for our students as they've gone through this whole pandemic. Certainly everybody agrees that schools need to stay open, but we need to do it really safely. But I always tell people not to forget about our head learners of the classroom, and those are our teachers. And so when we think about their needs to be supported, in particular, as we go through this whole still a pandemic on the other side and the talent shortages and what have you, we need to be very focused on helping to support our teachers. So if it's a service like this that helps to support their instructional needs, if it's recognition, incentives, whatever it takes, we really need to be focused to our head learners of the classroom as well.
And Nicola, where can people find more information about Kelly Education and Kelly Services, and maybe engage with your organization to provide the information that they need or some guidance on maybe helping them fill those jobs that are open in our education format across our local area?
Sure. If you come to our website, kellyeducation.com, we have all of the information right there. And we have folks that can engage immediately and to give any public school district, charter school, private independent, any information that they need. So not only do we do substitute teachers, but also all of our food and nutritional services, IT services, school nursing, therapy, tutoring, and so forth. So, and paraeducators. So it's all right there. So, we're willing and waiting to help. So thank you so much, Tyler, for having me as a guest today. It was a privilege to be able to speak to your audience.
I couldn't breathe at all. There was lots of talk about putting me on a ventilator. I thought I was gonna die. I was 39 weeks pregnant and had a scheduled C-section. During that time, I got COVID and was hospitalized for a month. I had a blood clot in my lungs. It caused me to go into right-sided heart failure. I was really scared. I kept texting my husband and my mom, telling them how scared I was, and I was worried that he was gonna grow up without a mom. And then I was worried if, when I did get home, that he wouldn't know who I was. Being 27 and a mom and a wife and having that all almost taken away from me. It's scary, and if a vaccine can prevent that from happening, why not? Get your vaccine. I don't want this to happen to anybody else.
A message from the staff of Michigan's Crime Victim Compensation Program.
Anyone can be a victim of crime
and suffer lasting trauma, physically, emotionally, and financially.
But you are not alone.
If you're struggling financially due to a crime,
we're here
for you.
Find out if you qualify for crime victim compensation.
Call 877-251-7373 or visit michigan.gov/crime victim.
A message from the Michigan Department of Health and Human Services, Division of Victim Services.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keeves alongside studio producer and board operator Calvin Brown in our studios here in West Bloomfield Township as we continue to talk about a number of interesting topics related to COVID-19 and other important news and information, and a number of different topics affecting businesses, affecting the community, schools certainly, and the medical outlook here in Oakland County, southeastern Michigan, and all across the state of Michigan on My Michigan TV and on our website, civiccentertv.com, where you can watch us live 10 a.m. to 12 noon every day, Monday through Friday, each and every week. We're pleased to be joined now by Christopher Cousins. He is a certified Exit Planning Advisor and C.A.P. And a member of Q5 Experience with us today on the Megacast. Christopher, thanks for being with us.
How are you?
Doing well today. How are you doing? How's the team over there?
Very good.
So for those that aren't familiar, what is Q5 Experience? What services do you provide to businesses in our local area and throughout the state?
Yeah, so Q5 is a relatively new consortium between three different businesses. And what we do is we provide basically an exit planning process for owners of businesses. And it's a huge conversation that's going on in the United States because so many owners are, millions of businesses nationwide are owned by boomers. And they're, over the next 10 years, it's going to be a transition of these companies. And so we are part of that conversation, delivering services in a unique way.
We're joined by Christopher Cousins. He's a certified exit planning advisor and a member of the Q5 Experience with us on the Megacast. According to industry studies, about approximately 80% of businesses do not have a written plan to transition their company to a successor. And of course, the pandemic has had a large impact on businesses. Many businesses have failed. Many businesses did end up maybe selling to competitors or larger companies to try to cut some of their losses. But others that have continued to power through the pandemic and have even maybe invested further in their company, hoping for the post-pandemic boom, may be in a position 5-10 years down the line, or even further, maybe even sooner as well, to cash in on that boom and sell their company. But that comes with a lot of different steps, and there's a lot of different considerations. What should business owners or boards that own corporations, or whatever the case may be, what should they be considering when they begin to go through the process of, I'm looking to potentially sell my company in the near future?
Well, the important thing here is the differentiation between a proactive process and a transaction. A lot of times business exits come down to a transaction. The owner decides they want to sell the company, so let's go find, an outside buyer, or try to work it out where somebody inside the company buys it, or in a lot of these cases, transitioning it to family members. What we talk to them about is that we really need to get way ahead of that. So, 3 to 5 years. If we can get 3 to 5 years ahead of that, event, then there's a lot of proactive planning, and really, that's what we do. We want to take that from a transaction to a process. And so, you gave the statistic about 80% of these owners don't have a written plan. The goal is to really bring that number way up.
We're joined by Christopher Cousins, Certified Exit Planning Advisor and C.A.P, and a member of the Q5 Experience, with us today on the Megacast. And 3 to 5 years for that plan, it seems like a really long time, especially because so much can change in a 3 to 5 year period. You're going to have ebbs and flows in your business. The economy can have significant changes during that time. You never know when the next emergency situation or disaster, natural, man-made, or some other situation is going to pop up. So why that 3 to 5 year period, given that that's so much time and so much can change over that time? Why is that still kind of that perfect window to go through planning for this significant change and ultimate transaction?
Well, I'll tell you from my personal story. I am a second generation owner in a 36-year-old company. My partner and I bought our company a few years ago called Financial Architects, and we're one of the members of the Q5 Experience. And we needed that time to get ready. And we tell owners the reason why you want to use that type of time window is because one of the big things is about having a successor management team. Who is that successor management team that's going to continue the business? Because a lot of these companies, we call them lifestyle companies, where the owner is very centric to the business. And, they were probably the founder. And so the client relationships, customer vendor relationships are very much centric to their personality and their relationship. And a lot of the processes and special sauce is in their heads. And so our job is to bring all that into a strategic plan, and it takes time to do that. Ideally, 3 to 5 years. It could be less than that, but if it's too short, then it becomes too much of having to go straight to a transaction. And ideally, that's not what owners would want if they really understand, the whole picture.
And it goes into not just putting your best foot forward in the process of a sale of the company, but it also takes into effect, and it has to have a significant impact on the ability to sell your company and make the best profit possible. Because if you have that plan in place and potential buyers are seeing that plan, that transition plan that you may have, it may do you find it makes that company that is going up for sale that much more valuable to a buyer, because they know that it's not going to be a situation where they come in buying the company that they really like the concept behind, or they like the product, or they like the team that they have, but there's no idea what's going to happen after that sale is complete.
Exactly. Yes, that's where owner centricity is actually a detractor of value.
Wow.
as time goes, a successor management team is a driver of value, a leadership team that can drive this company forward, with the owner being less and less involved, or in most cases not involved at some point. Those are what drive the values: process building, technology, diversifying customers, diversifying vendors. These are all these value drivers that we look at and focus on, and that takes time to get through. And the idea is, if 3 to 5 years, if the owners want to transition out in 3 years, so to speak, we'll actually help them drive the value of the business higher during that time, so that it increases their exit strategy for them personally and their families.
And that value rising because of that plan in place. It also has to support the momentum of the company post-sale also, because
Correct.
It's not just a company that you're selling. It's not just a product and the intellectual property necessarily that you're selling from one owner to another owner, from one ownership group to another ownership group. It's also the productivity of employees, of real people with real jobs that are supporting real families. And
Right.
that uncertainty of a transition can create, I would guess, some chaotic situations in the productivity of the company if there isn't that sort of certainty and that clarity going forward. How do these transition plans also aid the employees of these companies as they're going through the transition from one ownership group or one owner to the next?
Yeah, that's a great question. That drives us a lot in the work that we do, because we don't see a company with 50 or 75 employees as just an owner's business in helping the owner get what they want. That is, of course, what we're talking about in the beginning. But we really see it as a group of 50 or 75 families that depend on this business being successful for their livelihoods. And so when you think about community and you think about Oakland County, doing this right sustains that. And it allows that business to be, continuous. And so when we do this work, we're incorporating the business aspects of all of the business metrics that we need to look at. We have a behavioral neuroscience piece of it's one of the 3 components of what we do to help the relational side of it, making sure that relationships stay strong and healthy through the transition. And then finally, the owners, the money side of it, we have to look at that as well. So all those 3 things are blended together in that, overall strategy over that period of time.
We're joined by Christopher Cousins. He is a certified exit planning advisor and a C.A.P. and member of the Q5 Experience, with us today on the Megacast, talking about transitioning businesses from one owner to the next and making that the best situation possible, both for the outgoing owner and for their potential to profit on the sale, and for the new ownership and their team and the employees of these companies to make sure that they have a smooth transition and a future that continues to be just as fruitful as their present. And these transitions, we've said before earlier on in the interview, that these take about 3 to 5 years usually to put these plans into place and execute them as the sale is being prepared, or as putting a company up for sale is being prepared. And according to my notes, Christopher, your company then in the Q5 Experience, this consortium has 3 critical points, 3 critical considerations that it makes in forming these plans. What are those critical considerations, and what then goes into each one of them to make sure that these companies are putting their best efforts forward in transitioning these companies?
So the process starts with first a discovery to introduce the business owner to the experience themselves, so they understand what it is and what it isn't. A lot of times it seems like a transaction, and that's not what we're doing. So we want to make sure we're clear on that in the beginning. Then we move to the next phase where we assess things, and so we assess that things in 3 areas: the business considerations, all of those value drivers, some of which I mentioned. The personal financial considerations, which is what does the owner's financial strategy look like, and how do they see this business in the future providing their lifetime of net worth and income. And then thirdly, the personal considerations, which is the behavioral side. How does this work in terms of the management team? What are some things we need to be thinking about? And then also, here's a big one. What is the owner going to do once they're no longer in the business? That's a big question in that personal considerations area, because if we think about an owner that's been doing this for 35 years, this company is somewhat of their identity. And so what's life going to be like when they're no longer in the company? And so we address that right away. That's part of our assessment in the beginning. And so it's those three considerations are part of that first part.
We're joined by Christopher Cousins, Certified Exit Planning Advisor and C.A.P. and member of the Q5 Experience with us on the Megacast. And Christopher, if people are looking, if a business owner is looking to make this transition, they believe their company's at a point now where they can transition it away from their ownership, take on the profits of their years of labor and either retire off of this or start their next business venture, whatever the case may be. If they're ready to make this transition, what's the first step that they should take? How can they get in contact with you or others in the Q5 Experience?
Well, we have our website is www.q5experience.com. I will say our head of communications is Matt Derry, and he can be reached at 248-563-3613. The first step is the discovery conversation. It's a very short conversation to have the owners chat with us. There would be a couple of us, that they would talk to, myself and another gentleman. And we would discover whether or not this process is something they'd like to engage in now or eventually.
We're joined by Christopher Cousins. He's a certified exit planner and C.A.P. and a member of the Q5 Experience with us today on the Megacast. Just another minute or so before we say goodbye. Anything else that would be important for our audience to know about the Q5 Experience or about forming these transition plans, or anything else you'd like to say today, Christopher?
I would just say that this is a huge nationwide conversation, and there's going to be many of us practitioners needed to help these boomers over the next 5 to 10 years. And the key thing to remember is that every owner in that age group is going to have a transition. Whether or not it's on their terms is really the question. And so if owners want to have a transition that is on their terms, then I would suggest they call us and have a discovery call, and we can find out what that means to them.
Well, Chris, we appreciate your time. Thanks for being with us today and having this interesting conversation.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.
You as well. Christopher Cousins. He's a member of the Q5 Experience and certified exit planning advisor, and a really interesting conversation about making that transition from the success of a business, from the highs of running a successful company, especially in times like these where there's been so much uncertainty, and you want to make sure that you have certainty as you're going forward, as you're making that transition, certainly for yourself and for putting your best foot forward to make a profit and to sell your company successfully, but also for your company and for its employees and for the next ownership group to continue what you've started successfully. We're going to take a quick break. On the other side of the break, we're just a week away from the beginning of the Jewish high holidays, and we are pleased to be joined by Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzni of Temple Israel of West Bloomfield to talk about those holidays, what kind of goes into the festivities of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. That coming up next. You're watching and listening to the Megacast.
You see certain things get reincarnated in your children. My daughter is very much inspired by my wife's artistic pursuits. So my daughter started making necklaces. She makes what we call affirmation fashion. I tell her every day that your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. Your black is beautiful. And if there's anything better than being beautiful, it's being smart. And if there's anything better than being smart, it's being kind. And reaffirming that every day is our method of making sure her chin never drops. My dad wasn't around, and I remember riding a bike and falling off and cutting myself, and me never just wanting to get back on it. People ask, how your children learn how to ride a bike, and you did. I didn't teach them. I just created an environment where they taught themselves, and all I had to do was be there.
is the time of the year that are the high holy days for those who practice Judaism. And we're pleased to be joined by one of our local rabbis here in the greater West Bloomfield area, Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzni, who is from Temple Israel of West Bloomfield. Rabbi, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate having you on. For those that maybe aren't Jewish or aren't familiar with Judaism enough to know what the high holy days are, can you explain for us what this time of the year is and why it's important to the Jewish faith?
Sure, absolutely. So we are about to have our Jewish New Year. In Hebrew, it's Rosh Hashanah, and that is actually coinciding with Labor Day this year. Our holidays kind of travel a little bit around because they follow a lunar calendar. So this is really early for Rosh Hashanah to land. But we celebrate Rosh Hashanah as a time of rebirth and renewal, a time to kind of clean the slate and look forward with hope and with optimism to what is to come. And so it's a very jubilant celebration. And then 10 days later, we celebrate Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur is our Day of Atonement, and it's a very solemn occasion. It's one of the times of year when there is a 25-hour fast. So no drinking water, no eating food. There are a couple other restrictions. And it is a time when we're supposed to do a lot of introspection and ask ourselves kind of where we missed the mark in the year before, ask ourselves if we have hurt somebody. And if we have hurt somebody, we must go to that person and seek their forgiveness. It's also a time to kind of communicate with God and see how that relationship is. And if we have done something that kind of goes against the either Jewish law or the moral code that we all try to aspire to live to, it's another time that we can ask for forgiveness and aspire to do better.
Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzni with us from the Temple Israel of West Bloomfield, joining us today on the Megacast. And as we've gone through the pandemic, have you noticed that people, while they've had a lot of extra time to reflect outside of the high holy days in the Jewish faith, that they have turned more toward religious institutions and toward their faith as we've gone on over time and faced numerous different and varying challenges due to COVID-19 and the situations thereof?
I think so. You know, at the beginning of quarantine, we had so many families telling us that if they were looking for a silver lining, one of them was that for the first time, they were really celebrating Shabbat, our Sabbath, which comes in on Friday night, as a family. They were saying the blessings together. They were sitting down and having dinner. And we always stream our Shabbat services. They were sitting and watching services together, and they knew that their families and friends in other houses were doing the same. We have had so many people tell us that they felt comforted by our constant presence, either through services or through the multitudes of programs that we offered throughout the pandemic and that we still offer. We're blessed at Temple Israel to have many tents. We're just down the street from you guys, so you can drive down and see what we've got going over there. And we've been taking advantage of being able to be outside. But people have said that not only has their Temple Israel community given them a lot of hope and a lot of actually like courage to keep going, but also turning to Judaism, turning to our faith, which is joy-based and happiness-based and hope-based.
So you mentioned that you have the outdoor tents that you're having. Also, I know you also have those in-person services that are somewhat close to normal from before the pandemic are starting to come back. What are the availabilities for services, both in person and virtual? What options do you have provided for people that want to either join your congregation or engage with your congregation during the pandemic based on their levels of comfort and their vaccination status and so on?
Sure. So we are having our Shabbat services under our pavilion at 7 p.m. on Friday nights. All are welcome. We actually have been requesting that people wear masks even outside. Some people wear their masks until they're seated, and then they take them off. That might change for our high holidays, because even though we're trying to social distance, we're very blessed and we have a lot of people who want to come. But we are taking those measures. We understand that sadly the Delta variant is even more contagious, and being that it's airborne, we want to make sure that anyone coming to worship with us is safe and feel safe. And so for any program we have at Temple Israel, any service that we have even outside, we are taking those mitigation measures.
We're joined by Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzni from the Temple Israel of West Bloomfield. And circling back, Rabbi, to the High Holy Days, you mentioned that on one end of the High Holy Days, you have a moment of jubilation and celebration and the cleaning of the slate. And on the other end, it is reflection and consideration. How much more intense is that, so to speak, in terms of your congregation, do you find, because of the times that we're in and because people have had so much extra time to reflect and to consider their existence, their life, their relationships, their place in the world? Do you believe that this year, especially as we're starting to slowly but surely come out of the pandemic, that those emotions, those feelings, and those experiences that come with the High Holy Days are going to be even more intense this year than ever before?
I think so, because I think that, like you said, the time that people had to reflect upon what's important to them, what's necessary in their life, and what they can do without has become more and more obvious. And so a lot of people have realized that connection to community, connection to family, connection to their congregation is something that they want central in their lives. And a lot of people have said to us that they realized they were busy, like super busy, with a lot of things that didn't fulfill them. They also talked about reconnecting with friends and family in ways they hadn't before because they just never took the time to reach out. So I think that self-improvement is something that's important to us all year round, but the feelings of wanting to celebrate and also wanting to improve ourselves so as to improve the rest of the world are amplified. For Jews, the concept of tikkun olam, repairing the world through social justice, both in your community and beyond, is just foundational. And I think that anything our community can do to perform acts of tikkun olam have become even more magnified and even more important as people try to make it through this pandemic that has, I think, lasted longer in this level of intensity than most of us expected.
We're joined by Jennifer Kaluzni. She's a rabbi over at Temple Israel of West Bloomfield. And as we approach those High Holy Days, and you mentioned this pillar of Judaism, tikkun olam, as we get closer to those days, and we've been reflecting, how do people in the Jewish faith, and at the very least in your congregation, focus on tikkun olam in the community and in the greater area as we get into this time of the year and put that practice and put that pillar to action?
Sure. So every year between Rosh Hashanah, our New Year, and Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, we have people do a food collection, and we as a congregation end up donating hundreds and hundreds of pounds of food to Yad Ezra, which is the kosher food bank in our community. All of our bar and bat mitzvah kids, the ones who are 13 and are about to have their bar bat mitzvah ceremony, all do mitzvah projects. And I've had kids do incredible things, everything from they've been collecting cans and they've been cleaning up people's yards and they've been doing all these different projects to raise money, to animal shelters, to help buy flowers for senior assisted living facilities. We've realized that it's a lot of times the one-on-one interactions that make so much of a difference, making sure someone is fed, making sure someone is thought about and cared about. And we have impressed upon our community and given them opportunities to to be those contributors and to make those contributions. And that will last because it is a pillar, it is a foundation of everything we do that will last far beyond the pandemic.
We're joined by Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzni today on the Megacast. She is the rabbi at Temple Israel of West Bloomfield. And Rabbi, as we've started to have people emerge from the isolation of the pandemic, and we've seen our congregations of faith and across all religions come back together in person, do you find that your congregation over at Temple Israel is more close than ever before, or finds that part of their life to be, and that community in their life to be even more important than ever before, knowing what we've lost over the course of the pandemic?
Yes, I think so. We've had people come back, and even just when they walk into the building or they look at our sanctuary, they tell us that it is such a moving experience just to be in the space, that it's comforting, that they do feel like a sense of returning home. It gives them comfort to know that our kids are in the nursery and they're in camp and they're playing and they're enjoying, that the teens are returning to do projects and programming. And I think that sometimes it's just one of those things, of course, in life when things get busy that we take for granted that will always be there. And Temple Israel will always be there. But I think we are finding that more and more people do want to become involved because they realized how much the place, the people, the community truly means to them, and how big our congregation and our community, how important it is in their lives.
We're joined by Jennifer Kaluzni. She is the rabbi over at Temple Israel of West Bloomfield. And Rabbi, just another few minutes with you before we'll say goodbye today. Any other upcoming events at Temple Israel that you'd like to speak about, or anything interesting or important for our audience to know at this time?
I mean, there's a ton of interesting and important things going on at Temple Israel all the time.
Of course.
You can go to temple-israel.org and check out what we're doing. One thing I'm really excited about and super proud of is that myself and Cantor Neil Michaels have been working with the DMO, the Detroit Medical Orchestra, which is comprised of physicians and nurses and healthcare professionals who are also musicians. And we have 25-piece orchestra coming this Sunday to our pavilion, and we're doing a healing symphony. We're going to have some responsive readings, some singing, and absolutely beautiful music, because we feel that people really need to come together and to experience the music and the prayer and bring them both together for some healing. So if you're interested in that, you can register on our website or call Temple Israel. And that's something we're really, really proud of. And I'm excited for on Sunday night.
Well, yeah, that sounds like a really interesting event, really fun, and good for the soul as well. We appreciate it. Rabbi Jennifer Kaluzni from Temple Israel, Bloomfield. Thanks for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question? Why did you get your kids vaccinated?
It was hard for them to social distance, to be isolated from their friends.
I want them to get back to school and sports games. So as a pediatrician, I recommend the vaccine to everyone I know.
The boys lost a former teammate and classmate who was only 20 years old. It's been a devastating year.
We want to get back to normalcy. Our daughter is really looking forward to being with her friends, being a kid.
When times get dark, we can't see the help that's all around us. When you don't know where to turn, let 211 be your guiding light.
211, how can I help you?
Our guides are ready to connect you with the help you need. For help with food, healthcare, mental health, and other resources, call 211 or visit 211.org. 211. Get connected, get help.
Welcome back to the Megacast. I'm Tyler Keefe, alongside studio operator and board operator Calvin Brown in our studios here in West Bloomfield Township. And we have a number of great companies and nonprofits in our local area, and that includes LeHost Hair and Wigs in Ferndale and their nonprofit as well. We're pleased to be joined once again by Haith and Henry Johnson, the owners of LeHost Hair and Wigs in Ferndale, with us again on the Megacast. Haith, Henry, thanks for being with us again.
Hi, Tyler.
Hello.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate having you back. So you got a fundraiser that's coming up on September 18th from 1 to 7 at the Meridian in Farmington Hills. Tell us a little bit about the fundraiser, but also a little bit about your nonprofit and how it benefits people in our local area.
Awesome. Thank you again for having us. Well, actually, LeHost, our company is actually a for-profit that has extended our arms out to the community through our nonprofit called Love That Works. And so Love That Works is our nonprofit organization that we assist women that are in need of wigs due to cancer or alopecia or any major medical condition that causes them to have extreme hair loss. We've also championed this year, and we're so excited about this upcoming launch of our new program called Stepping Into Purpose, where we work with young women that have been rescued from human trafficking. And so we go in and we help them to identify their potential, identify a career, or even start their own businesses. So we are excited about that agenda that initiative that we have to bring hope and healing to young women that have been rescued from human trafficking.
And the goal of your fundraiser here is to raise $100,000, and part of that proceeds will ensure 500 beauty and hygiene bags that will be given to these survivors, the residents, the participants in this entrepreneurial program through your nonprofit. So right now, and we're a little short on time, my apologies, we got to you a little bit late and we have a quick end of the show today, but for those that are interested in helping out, what are the immediate needs that your nonprofit needs to be able to provide these services to these women, and also how can people get involved with this fundraiser?
Thank you so much again. Yeah, well, September the 18th at the Meridian Banquet Hall, we're going to be hosting, it's called the Beautiful Give Back. And with that Beautiful Give Back, we're asking people to give into Love That Works so that we can assist these young girls in developing a future, bringing them hope and helping them to, again, like I said, to start their own businesses. And so what they can do, anyone that's watching, they want to participate, the first thing that we do with this entrepreneurship program is 3 phases. And the first phase is my beautiful little sister, because we know they're going to have trust issues. So in order for us to even go in there to bring them help and healing, we got to let them know that we're their big sisters and we're going to love on them. So we want to assist them with self-esteem, a better self-value, and a better value system. And so we're going to go in there with hygiene bags and teach them how to better take care of themselves. So if anybody would like to participate, they can go to the LeHost Hair and Wigs website. And if you click on sponsorship, it'll take them right to how they can become a partner with us as we bring hope and healing to these young women.
In addition, that we would love for their participation to come to the event. The event will be at the Meridian. The Meridian is in Farmington Hills off Haggerty Road. It's going to be on September 18th between 1 and 7 p.m. It's going to be a spectacular event. Got a lot of entertainment, got comedians, so they can come out and get involved into this fundraiser and then see the benefit of it as well.
Correct. And we're also going to be honoring 3 of our local women of excellence. And so we're excited that we just added that component of it. We're going to be honoring Sherry Gay Dungo, Bishop Coletta Vaughn, who was one of the first women bishops in the whole state of Michigan, Dorinda Clark Cole, who is one of the legendary Clark sisters, as well as Dr. Deborah Pallard, who is a radio personality on 92.3.
So it's going to be a great event. We want to invite people to come on out. And we have about 20 vendors. So for those that love to shop, it's going to be a great time for those that can help the vendors, because as I heard before, in your previous conversation, people are trying to get out and this allows them to be able to get out and shop and still be safe, because it will be a safe COVID atmosphere.
Well, Haith Henry, we appreciate having you on. Our apologies again. We had to end the show a little bit early today. But before we go, I just want to give you one last opportunity, about 15 seconds. If people are interested in donating or in getting tickets to the fundraiser, where can they find more information?
They can find more information, again, at LeHost. That's LEHOST hair.com. And if you go to the site, you push the little button that says sponsorship, and that definitely would help us in our endeavors to bring empowerment to these young girls, because just because that happened to them in their past, it doesn't have to dictate how they live successfully in their future. And if you would like to come to the event, all you have to do is go to Eventbrite and punch up the beautiful give back, and it'll take you there. This is a free event. We're just asking for people to be generous in donation, so that in our endeavors to help and bless these young girls, to give them direction and instruction on how they can be a big contribution to their community.
Well, Haith Henry, we appreciate it. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Appreciate it. That is going to do it for our show. We'll be back tomorrow morning live from 10 a.m. to 12 noon. Thank you for watching and listening to the Megacast.